Smile and learn.
They call me Lazarillo de Tormes because I was born in the Tormes River. My parents were from a village in the province of Salamanca. They were very poor. I was 8 years old when my father was sent to fight in the Battle of Guelphs. My mother was left to raise me alone. We had to move to the city of Salamanca, and my mother knew that she could not support us both, so she left me in the care of a blind man. She asked him to take care of me like a son. He was my first master. The blind man was very skilled and cunning, but he was also a stern man who had lived a difficult life. He was more than willing to let me learn my way through life.
Learn, boy. A blind man's servant must know more than the devil. I can't give you gold or silver, but I can teach you how to make it in the world.
The blind man gave me so much advice, but oh, how he made me go so hungry. Luckily, I learned how to trick him. He kept the food in a sack, which he locked with an iron key. He would only give me a little food, which I would eat in 2 bites. However, when the blind man would close the lock and think I was away doing other things, I would go over to the sack and undo the seam on one side. Then I would pull out pieces of bread, sausage, and bacon through the hole. I would then sew it back together, and that was that. That's how I spent my days. The blind man was determined to teach me lessons about life, but I took every opportunity to trick him so that I could eat. One day we left Salamanca and went to Toledo. There, we met a grape picker who offered the blind man a bunch of grapes. The blind man was very happy.
I want to share these grapes with you. We'll do it like this. You take one, and I'll take one. And if you promise me that you won't take more than 1 grape at a time, I will do the same until we finish them. That way, it is fair.
I thought it was a good deal, but immediately the blind man went back on his word and began to take the grapes 2 at a time. I saw that he broke our agreement, so I did the same. I took the grapes 2, 3, and even 4 at a time. When we finished them, he shook his head and said to me,
Lazaro, you tricked me. You ate the grapes 3 at a time.
No, I didn't. I lied. I was shocked that he noticed. Why would you say that?
Why? I know that you ate them 3 at a time because I ate 2 at a time and you said nothing.
I was amazed. Even though I was still a child, I realized how very smart he was. The next day, I approached a priest to ask for money, and he asked me if I wanted to work for him, so I did. However, it was out of the frying pan and into the fire, because the priest was even more stingy than the blind man. He had an old, locked chest where he kept his food, but he always carried the key with him. Every 4 days, he would give me an onion to eat. If there was someone around when I asked him for the key, he would take it out and give it to me, saying,
Use it, but give it back to me right away. You do nothing but eat.
That was a lie. With only the few onions he gave me, I was starving to death. But he ate delicious meat for lunch and dinner.
He even chewed the bones clean. From time to time, he would put the cleaned bones on my plate and say, "Eat these. It's plenty for you. You already live better than a king." One day, my master left town and a coppersmith came by the house. He asked me if I had any pots to repair. I came up with a plan. "I lost the key to this chest. Do you have anything to open it?" He tried all his keys until he found one that worked. He gave it to me. I was very lucky. From then on, whenever my master slept, I opened the chest and tore off a small piece of bread from the loaf. But the priest saw the bread full of holes and began to think that it was the work of mice, or worse, a snake. He went crazy. He tried everything, covering the holes in the chest, setting traps, but the bread kept disappearing. He was so obsessed that he would get up at night and try to hunt the snake with a club. I was worried that in one of these hunts he might find the key, so I decided to sleep with it in my mouth. That was a horrible idea. One night I was sleeping with my mouth open, and as I breathed, air blew through the keyhole like a whistle. My master heard it and thought it was the hissing of the snake. He got up slowly with the club in his hand. He crept in the direction of the hissing to catch the snake, and wham! I am still hurting from the blow he gave me. As you can imagine, the priest did not like my trickery. He threw me out into the street and I had to look for another master. Walking from door to door in the city of Toledo, I met a squire walking down the street. He was very well dressed and very well groomed. He looked at me and I looked at him. "Boy, are you looking for a master?" "Yes, sir." "Come with me. You've been very lucky to find me." I followed him happily. I was convinced that he was going to change my life. That morning, we passed by many markets where they sold bread and food, but he didn't stop to buy anything. It was as if he wasn't entirely sure about me. My stomach was rumbling, but I thought he would surely have a delicious meal waiting for us when we got to his house. But how I was in for a surprise. There was no food at all in his house, not even a decent bed. My new master told me he wasn't hungry, but it didn't take me long to realize that was a lie. He was well dressed, but the squire had no food to eat. He had so much pride that he wouldn't ask for help or money. Instead, he would walk around through the square as if he were a rich man. He even tried to make me believe that he went to magnificent feasts without me. I felt sorry for him, of course. He was vain. But of all my masters, he was my favorite. In the end, he gave me nothing, but it was because he had nothing. One day, the squire disappeared with no explanation, so once again I had to look for a new master. I had several more masters, a salesman, a painter, a bailiff, and with all of them I lived through dangerous and terrible things. Just when I thought I would never be able to support myself, I found a good job as the town crier of Toledo. And that's how I got to where I am today. And I must confess, I am doing it very well.
Recently, the archpriest of San Salvador asked me to marry his maid, and I did. I'm very happy because she is a good woman, and the archpriest always gives us wonderful gifts and useful things. People sometimes judge me for accepting help from others, but I don't listen to them. For once in my life, luck is on my side. I have a quiet life and food to eat. After so many adventures, I have learned that this is the most important thing.
Platero was my donkey. He was small, fuzzy, and as soft as a cloud. Only his jet black eyes were as sharp as a piece of glass. When I let him loose in the meadow, he would run and run, and when I called him, he would trot happily back to me. The village people would see him and shout, "He's like steel!" And it was true. He was like both silver and steel. His coat was as shiny as silver, and he was as strong and brave as steel. One day, as we were walking, Platero began to limp. "What's wrong, my friend?" Platero raised his right hoof with a sad look on his face. He had a thorn stuck in it. I didn't waste a second. I lay down on the ground, pulled the thorn out of his hoof, and took him to the stream to drink some water. Oh, how happy Platero was. After a short while, we headed to the sea. On the way, Platero nuzzled me on the back. I knew it was his way of thanking me. Platero got dirty very easily, and his coat had to be washed with great care. It was a hot summer day, perfect for a bath. So I took Platero out to the courtyard, brought out a basin, and asked him to get in. "In you go, Platero. We're going to get you nice and clean." Platero nodded, although he was not very convinced. I gently washed him with the hose. Little by little, the dirt from his coat disappeared and the water in the basin got darker and darker. "See, my little stubborn donkey, don't you feel better now?" Platero brayed and shook himself dry. Suddenly, he looked shy and embarrassed. "How handsome you are, Platero." And the little donkey, overjoyed, reared and started running around the courtyard as if he were a dog. He was so happy, clean, and beautiful. His little black eyes were shining brighter than ever. One day, Platero and I were walking in the field when we came upon a swallow caught in a net. She flapped and chirped, calling out to her brothers for help, but they couldn't possibly get too close, or they would get trapped too. "Oh no, Platero! That poor bird is caught in a net! Help me!" Platero looked as sad and worried as I was. We couldn't leave without doing something. Together we pulled on the net until we managed to free the poor swallow. She was so small and so frightened. "Now you are free. Fly away, my friend."
the little bird spread her wings, took flight, and went to join her brothers. Reunited, the swallows chirped joyfully together. And they were not the only ones. Platero was beside himself with joy. How wonderful it felt to help others! One afternoon in early autumn, Platero and I gathered in the field with our friends. I wanted to show them a new album of trading cards that I had received as a gift. It came all the way from Vienna. The girls looked at it, their eyes widening and their jaws dropping with each page. Then I had an idea. Let's have a race. The first one to reach the violets wins all the cards.
Really? Promise?
I promise. I'll be the referee. Ready? On your mark. Get set. Go! The girls started running. They zipped across the grass, their little dresses flapping in the wind. They were close to reaching the violets when suddenly Platero, excited by the game, galloped ahead and passed them. The girls didn't want to waste a single second complaining, but even when they did, it was too late. Platero wins! Platero wins!
That's not fair. Platero can't even read.
It was true, Platero had won the race, but he couldn't even hold the book with his hooves.
I have an idea.
She picked a handful of parsley from the meadow and made a crown.
For you, Platero.
The little donkey was delighted when the girl placed the crown on his head. 3 cheers for the winner! Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! It was Carnival Monday, and the children had painted Platero's face. The whole town was celebrating and dancing around him. However, the poor little donkey was not enjoying the party. He would raise his ears and try to find a way to escape, but there was no way. At last, I managed to get him out of there and take him to the meadow to relax. Poor Platero, there was no way to calm him down. Platero was scared to death and wouldn't stop trembling. Then a butterfly flew by. Look how it flies, Platero. It flies and flies. Platero calmed down right away. He had always loved butterflies just as much as I did. One morning, I discovered that Platero was very sick. His eyes were closed, and he wouldn't get up from the pile of straw that was his bed. His belly was so swollen, and he was breathing very slowly. What's wrong, my friend? What's hurting? There, the vet will make you feel all better. Just hold on a little longer. The village vet arrived at the stable a few minutes later. He kneeled down to listen to Platero's heart. Then he looked up at me very sad. Not good, is it?
There's nothing we can do, kid. He must have eaten a bad herb. The best thing you can do is stay with him until he falls asleep.
And so I did. I sat down at Platero's side and gently stroked his back. Platero, you are my best friend. I didn't know if he could hear me, but I had to say it. You are the greatest donkey one could ever have. What good times we have had together. Do you remember the swallow and the race? You ran so well that day. You can rest now, Platero. Everything will be all right. We're going to be fine. Platero passed away at noon. The stable was silent, except for the sound of my sobbing. All around us flew a colorful butterfly that shone in the sunlight. One afternoon, months later, my friends and I went to the meadow. In the shade of a pine tree, there was a small stick anchored to the ground, surrounded by flowers. It was Platero's grave. Platero, my friend. My friends cried.
Oh, Platero!
Platero, we miss you!
My little donkey. I'm sure you're in a nice meadow now. Are there lots of swallows flying freely through the air? Do you take baths? I hope you're not still eating things off the ground. Tell me, do you see us? Are you looking down on us from up there? Then, as if it were a sign, a beautiful butterfly fluttered from flower to flower and landed on Platero's grave. I was sure that the butterfly was a gift from Platero, who didn't want to see us sad. So I smiled. I stroked the stick anchored in the ground and gave thanks to my donkey.
In a village in La Mancha, the name of which I have no desire to recall, lived Alonso Quijano, most commonly known as Don Quixote. Don Quixote loved books so much, he would spend entire hours reading them. Without a doubt, his favorite stories were about the great knights in old Spain. As Don Quixote read through these novels about great deeds of chivalry and accomplishments, he started confusing fantasy with reality. In like manner, he strived to imitate the heroes in the stories, becoming a knight errant. The world needs brave men like myself to fight for justice against evil. From now onwards, I'll go down in history as Don Quixote de la Mancha. Don Quixote made all the necessary arrangements to become a knight, like those in his books. He went up to the attic and found an armor. He laid his hands on an old spear and a dented shield which he had to fix. I almost forgot, I will also need a horse. He went down to the stables and there found Rocinante, a skinny old nag. Just then, his neighbor Sancho, a kind, chubby peasant, was passing by. Don Quixote remembered right away that he also needed a companion in his wanderings. Dear Sancho, every knight needs a faithful squire and adventurous companion. I can't promise you the world, but if we win fortune and glory, I'll grant you the privilege of becoming the governor of an isle. Sancho was slightly naive, so he believed him and accepted the proposal. And this was how such an atypical pair set off seeking adventures. Their neighbors couldn't believe their eyes. What were these lunatics up to? They laughed at them for hours, but couldn't stop them. Don Quixote, Sancho, and Rocinante were strolling along the plains of La Mancha when they saw some windmills at a distance. Sancho, my friend, do you see those enormous giants? I shall do battle with them unto the death to stop their evil deeds. Which giants, my lord? Those, over there, in the distance. There are at least 30 of them. Can't you see how huge their arms are? Those aren't giants, Don Quixote. They're windmills. And those that look like arms to you aren't arms. They are the blades that spin around with the wind. Sancho, fear doesn't let you see clearly. Step aside. I'll battle them. Don't run away, coward creatures! Sancho's warnings didn't do any good. The blades pushed Don Quixote off his horse. Both himself and Rocinante fell on the ground, badly injured. My lord, I told you they weren't giants. They were windmills. But you didn't listen. Hush, Sancho. It's magician Freston's fault, who changed the giants into windmills to deprive me of victory. But I won't give up. The power of my sword is greater than the magician's evil doing. Sancho Panza helped his lord up. He treated his wounds, and they both set off once again in search for more adventures. Sancho, my friend, every knight needs to have a fair lady to dream of and to honor with his heroic deeds. Because a knight without love is like a tree without leaves. Don Quixote had chosen Dulcinea del Toboso, a young peasant girl, whom he idealized and decided she'd become the lady of his dreams. Don Quixote decided to write a letter to his beloved. Sovereign and exalted lady, sweetest Dulcinea del Toboso, your absence hurts dearly my heart, my fair beloved. I dream about the day we'll meet again and you'll heal my wounds. Forever yours, the Knight of the Sad Continents. Don Quixote set out on his new path together with Sancho. Suddenly, he saw a thick cloud of dust. A vast army was approaching with the capacity to defeat them. Sancho warned him of such insanity. There's no vast army of soldiers. It's just a large flock of sheep. Don Quixote didn't listen and pounced at the sheep. He hurt a lot of them with his spear and stepped on many others with his horse. Hey! The shepherds were furious, and they started throwing stones at him. So many that both Sancho and Don Quixote had to flee with great speed. Don Quixote felt exhausted. Nightlife wasn't the way he had imagined it to be. He had come across with nothing but mockery, attacks, and disappointments. And this was how Don Quixote commenced his journey back home, where other adventures were waiting for him. Those told in the books he loved reading so much. This story, written by the famous author Miguel de Cervantes, is great in length and filled with adventures like the ones we told you about. How would you like to read the whole novel?
We've learned so much in just one video. Did you know there are many more videos? Imagine how much you could learn. Subscribe to the Smile and Learn educational channel to learn and have fun at the same time.